Hello, nonprofit heroes and rock stars. This is Tom Check with Greater Impact Consulting, helping your org spend less time in their database so you can spend more time on your mission. Today we are talking about Salesforce AppExchange basics. Just like your iPhone or your Android or your iPad have an app store that you can go to add functionality to your device, Salesforce also has an app store. They call theirs the AppExchange. It's a really useful place to be able to get some add-ons that make your life a lot easier, especially as a nonprofit where you want to automate as much as possible. So today we're going to go through the real basics of how do you go to the AppExchange, how do you download an app, how do you install it, and then what does it look like after you do so. And we're also going to touch really quickly on how do you remove an app after it's been installed. So with all that in mind, let's get rolling and share screen. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to open the AppExchange. And to do that, we go to Salesforce. The fastest, easiest way is to go into your setup. And then in your quick find box, just start typing AppExchange. And you'll see AppExchange Marketplace comes up. When I click on that, it's going to open a window on top of my existing window with the AppExchange in it. And it looks like this. And you've got three key components to the AppExchange. You've got apps that are available, you've got components, and you've also got consultants. So if you're an org that has a major project that you want to build out and has a lot of custom stuff involved in it, you might hire a consultant directly from the AppExchange. Components are generally small pieces that add a little bit of functionality here and there, but they're not full-blown like apps. They're not designed to do a whole thing by themselves. They're just designed to add a little bit of extra functionality. And then apps are designed to really add an entirely new dimension to what you use in Salesforce. So as an example, if I click on apps and I go to more, I can browse a couple of different ways here. I can either search for stuff directly or I can filter just like you can with any other app. So just on apps here, I can see that I've got Salesforce for Slack, which a lot of you might use, Rollup Helper, Query Studio. I can also click this little arrow up here and start to filter down on what I actually want. Do I want new apps, free apps? Do I want collections? Do I want categories? And I can also filter over here. If I want to filter on pricing, only apps that have discounts for nonprofits or are free. Great, I can do that really easily. I can also make sure that they go with my enterprise level edition, which is what you have if you are using the free 10 licenses for Salesforce. So you can do all of that and then just apply that. Just like anywhere else, it'll filter and give you the results that go along with your filters. The other way is if I know exactly what I'm looking for. A lot of times I've got a specific use case I'm thinking of. Maybe I want a MailChimp integration because I'm using MailChimp, right? So if I just type in MailChimp here and search for it, I'll be able to see if there's a MailChimp integration already on the AppExchange. And look, there it is. If I'm looking for specifically something to help me with roll-ups, I can just search for roll-up and it'll show me all the different options that are designated as roll-ups, right? So segmentative, in addition to Rollup Helper, in addition to all the rest of these say something about roll-ups. So how do we install one of these? First off, let's go ahead and click on it. We're going to install today Rollup Helper. Rollup Helper is an app that allows you to add roll-up fields between objects that are not in a master-child relationship. If that's all Greek, go check out the video on relationships or read the article on relationships, and that'll make a little more sense. But we often sometimes need the ability to create roll-up fields that aren't between objects that aren't in that kind of relationship. Anyway, so here's our app, and on the first page it takes us to the details page. We've got some information. We've got some pictures that we can scroll through to get a look at what this app looks like. All of this is filled in by the company itself. So it really does, it's based on what they think you need to see, so it'll be different for every app. Occasionally you will get taken to this same loading screen that you're seeing now, just because the AppExchange needs to load stuff. Over here at the top will be the pricing. It's also marked over here, underneath here. Rollup Helper is free, they say, and it is. Like many apps on the AppExchange, there is a version of it that is free, often with limited capacity or time trials. Some organizations are really great about being honest about their pricing on the Salesforce AppExchange. Many of them are not, just like with any app marketplace. And so I would always do my homework as far as what's included in the free. You can, of course, also read more, check out highlights about what it is, read the contact information so you can go to the website. And you can also get some information about supported features. Generally, you want to make sure stuff is Lightning ready if you're going to be asking your staff to use it and you're using Lightning. Some information about the package contents and the requirements that it has. And here we also see the free edition features, 3 rollups, real-time and scheduled, all of this stuff. So if you want more than 3 rollups, you would need to pay for this. But for free, it's still pretty great. On the left-hand side over here, you've also got this reviews button. Reviews, I think, are really important when it comes to apps because people are pretty honest on these reviews. So if an app sucks, they'll tell you about it. With 4.5 stars, Rollup Helper is really well reviewed. 326 people gave it a 5-star review. And I agree, it is one of the most user-friendly rollup apps out there. It's not maybe always the most functional, but for regular first-time basic administration, it's a godsend. Beyond the reviews pane, you've got the provider pane, which tells you information about the person who is distributing this software. This is distributed by Passage Technology. It tells you a little bit about them. And kind of also cool, it does show you other apps from this provider. So if you really like an app because it's just super intuitive and you're wondering what else they might offer, you can go in and you can actually search by the provider, which is really neat. So that's how we identify what the app is. The next step is to install it. And to do that, we say get it now. Now you're almost always going to see this where it asks you to log in, totally normal. We're going to say open login screen, and if you opened this from the setup part of your Salesforce, on this first screen it'll probably automatically log you in. If instead you went to appexchange.salesforce.com to browse, you would have to log in manually. So after it logs you in, you're going to be given an option. Do you want to install in this org that you're currently logged into? So that's this org that I got to my setup from. Or do you want to install in a sandbox org? I'm going to be the one that says installing in sandboxes is always a good idea. Even for simple integrations, it's great to be able to play with them to figure out how they work without worrying about upsetting or ruining or changing the data that's in your production org. So you can set up a sandbox. That's a different video. But you can set up a sandbox. You can install this just to the sandbox so you can play with it before you install it in your production org. My demonstration org here is a developer org, so I have to install it in this org. Next step is just to verify what we're doing. Of course, it wants to gather some information from you because they are going to add you to their mailing list. Just be aware. After you fill in the basic info, you're going to need to check the box that says I have read and agree to the terms. Now, you can remove yourself from the mailing list by making sure that the next box is unchecked. Once we proceed forward here, this is a screen you're going to see for most apps that you install. Do you want to install this just for admins, for all users, or just for specific profiles? And this will really depend on you, your org, how you've got your users set up, and which app you're installing. Something like a rollup helper, I generally just want admins to have access to that because day-to-day users, the rest of my staff, are not going to be going in and setting up rollups. They can, of course, view the rollups because that happens on the front-facing side. So I'm going to hit install, and I get taken to this screen. Often, almost always, you will be notified after this screen sits up for a little bit that the install is taking a long time. and that you will receive an email when it is complete. This is totally natural, normal, and very much the experience that you have most of the time. I think I've only ever had one app that fully installed here without telling me that it was taking too long. All right, here's the error that you should probably end up seeing. And when you do, you can either continue shopping, which will take you just right back to the App Store, or if you hit done, I think it also just takes you right back to that app. Now, you will get an email that tells you that your app is done installing. Let me show you what that looks like. So once your app finishes installing in the background, you'll be sent an email that looks a lot like this. It tells you the package that you installed. It'll tell you whether or not it was successful. It'll tell you the organization that it's installed into, who did the installation, what the package name is. So that's all there is to that. As we go back, I do want to point out that on occasion, under the details pane on AppExchange, they offer these additional data sheets and customization guides. These can be really important because for a lot of apps, there's going to be some additional setup you need to do in order to install it successfully. So what I might do is I might go in and check out the Rollup Helper admin guide on that AppExchange listing. And that'll take me to the developer's website. And sometimes it takes you to a video, sometimes it takes you to a PDF, sometimes it takes you somewhere else. But this gives you all the information you need to know to make sure that this integration and this app work well for you. So like this is really good to know that after installation of Rollup Helper, we highly recommend assigning users who will utilize it to the Rollup Helper permission set. That's really great because otherwise you're going to be sitting there wondering why the heck nobody can see this yet. Post-install instructions tells you everything you need to do to create a rollup, to add the tab, all around security, all of this stuff. So all of this is going to be accessible from the AppExchange listing. And that's really, really helpful because then you always know where to go. So great, our app installed. What do we do now? We go back to our main database here, Salesforce instance, and we click on our app manager, our app launcher. Now we can go down to view all, or we can just start typing. And if I start typing Rollup Helper, hey look, I've got Rollup Helper installed. And if I click on that, it'll take me to that app in Salesforce. Now if I ever want to leave that app and go back to, let's say, Nonprofit Success Pack, I again just click on that app launcher, the top left hand, those 9 dots, and I would say Nonprofit Success Pack, and that's how I would do that. From here, we can do whatever the integration and app is designed to do. For Rollup Helper, we would go in, I'd probably read the getting started bit, and then I would go create some rollups. I'm not going to take you through that process because we're not here to learn about Rollup Helper, we're just here to learn about the apps. So after this is installed, how do you manage it? How do you remove it down the road if you don't want it anymore? How do you see which apps are installed in your organization rather? And to do that, we go back to setup. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for, instead of AppExchange, we're going to search for installed packages is where Salesforce puts this information. Because an app is a bunch of managed packages, and so almost all of your apps that get installed are going to show up here. So if you've installed an app called Program Management Module, which I highly recommend, it's free and allows you to, as a nonprofit, manage all of your programming in Salesforce, that shows up here. Also, hey look, here's our Rollup Helper. And it tells me when it expires. If I've got licenses that expire, it tells me when it was installed. It tells me how many apps, tabs, objects, all of that stuff it comes with. I can always click on it to learn a little bit more if I want. There's not a ton of information that's all that useful for most of us in here, other than occasionally when we want to uninstall, we might have to view dependencies to make sure we're not missing anything. So great. Ideally, this would be about as far as you need to take it most of the time. You searched for the app you wanted, you found it, you downloaded it and installed it, and then you just use it after you read the documentation. if you do need to uninstall it, which definitely happens sometimes, especially if you're installing trials of software that you end up not wanting to use, whether it's a sandbox or a full-on production organization, you can go in and uninstall them. To do that, you can either click on the package and click uninstall here, or right next to it in the installed packages screen, you'll see that there's an uninstall option there. When I do that, click on it, it's going to take me to another window that basically says, are you 100% sure that you want to remove this? It's going to remove all of these things. There's a lot of them. I get a choice of whether or not I want to save a copy of this package's data for 48 hours, basically to make sure that if something else breaks because I removed it, I can put it back. In general, I think that's a good idea. In this case, because we just installed it, I'm going to say do not save a copy. It's going to pop up and ask me if I'm sure, and I say yes. I have to check the box that says yes, I want to uninstall this package, and then I click uninstall again. Now, if you get an error on the next page, it's because you've got some dependencies that you have to go deal with. Oftentimes, we set these up and they get really integrated into our package. Oh, like right here. The rollup helper permission set is assigned to one or more users. I can only delete permission sets that aren't assigned to users. And so in that case, what I would do is I would click on the permission set name, I would unassign it from users, if I remove that assignment, and then I go back to my installed packages, go down, click uninstall. And this is pretty common. When you uninstall an app, you're going to have to go through and do some cleanup. Maybe it's permission sets, maybe it's something else, but there's generally something that causes at least one error. Now that I've dealt with that one piece of trouble that this one had, it should uninstall correctly. And the only way we know that is because it takes us back to the installed packages screen. So that's it. That's the basics of using the Salesforce AppExchange to extend the functionality of your Salesforce instance. If you have any questions or any concerns at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. And until next time, keep creating a greater impact in your community by paying less attention to your database. Thanks so much. Have a great day.